All right, Aaron again. Well, again, you're sitting on the ES300. This time, she's leaking a lot of oil. And we're gonna throw her up on the lift and take a look. My guess is gonna be that it's the rear valve cover gasket, because for some reason, the guy that owns the Lexus, not gonna say who, but the guy that owns the Lexus did the spark plugs, which removes the intake manifold, gives you full access to do the back valve cover gasket. Well, he did that before he had the valve cover gaskets. So we put it all back together and drove the car, and then did the front gasket and said, I don't feel like doing the back. Well, now the back's dripping all over the place, and it smells when you drive it. So let's throw it up, see where the leak is, and most likely it's going to be the back valve cover gasket, and we'll go from there. I'm going to try different microphone setups. I think the mic sounded pretty good in the last video, and we'll go from there. Alrighty. Alright, I just want to bring you in and show you something that I noticed while I was about to lift my car. See that splatter? And you can see some right there. I wiped my finger on some over there. That's a bad sign. And if you're ever looking at a used car, or wondering if your car maybe needs to be checked out, usually that's a sign of CV joint grease leaking out. I'm not sure that's what this is. We're going to take a look once we get under the car, because I actually replaced this axle. But let's get in there and see where this grease is coming from. Alright, we're about to inspect this together, and I can already see something that's not making me happy. But what I want to say is funny is, in my earpods right now, I'm actually listening to the song Today Was a Good Day. So let's take a look here. That definitely looks like CV joint grease. Oh yeah, you can see right there. I don't know if it's going to focus. Oh yeah, you can see that little blister right on that rib. That's leaking grease. So it looks like this Chinesium axle, which 123,000, so I write how many miles things last, and you can't really see it up there. I believe it says 123,498. It definitely, that axle either needs to be rebooted or replaced. Son of a bitch. I don't know. Maybe we'll look into rebooting this thing. I've tried epoxying holes in boots before. That doesn't work. Ironic that happened right after I rotated the tires. Old last person in there, that's my fault. Nope. That's a $69 axle off of Amazon. That's what you get, folks. All right, now let's look up in here. Okay, we see oil all over the back of the motor here. It looks like the sub-oil pan could be leaking, but let's look up. And you look up and you see, where am I looking here? Okay. So if you kind of look up there towards where you see that bracket, the whole back of the motor at the valve cover gasket, it's really hard to show you this with a GoPro, but up there where I'm shining is where the valve cover meets the cylinder head, and it is all soaked. Oh, here's a better angle, maybe. Okay, so you see that brown sheen? I just shined my light on it. That's the above that brown is the valve cover gasket, below it is oil leaking all over the cylinder heads. So we're going to start there, and it looks like everything else back here could be good. We replaced these power steering lines at one point, and I mean, the funniest part is this is the original Toyota axle that came in this car, and it's not, I mean, it's seeping a little. You can, I don't know if I can get you close enough. That boot's dry rotted a little. This one's fine. But that's a brand new axle. I mean, that axle, as I said, we're looking at $123,498. Let's actually go up top and take a look at the mileage, because this is going to be funny. All right, let's take a quick look here. Just going to dip you inside the car and reach over. We're going to turn the ignition on. Let's see what we got. Oh, hold on, the lights are on. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but this car has 128,207 miles on it. Needless to say, that's not a good lifespan for the boot on an axle. Anyway, our main focus today is going to be doing that back valve cover gasket, which is hanging right there on my toolbox. And also I got to check this wheel for a leak. It keeps going flat and I don't know why. Okay, so this particular car is missing a few, but we have to start by removing this engine cover, which Toyota doesn't want you to know this, but really the only purpose of that engine cover is to make the engine look fancier and primarily give them a place to put the Lexus logo, so you don't know it's a Toyota. Which, I mean, to each their own. It's not that important. They're the same car. This is a Toyota Camry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you can't really do anything about that. Okay. Cover off. Put that somewhere where you're not going to kick it and launch the fasteners. Let's grab a magnetic tray, because we're going to have to put a lot of these parts somewhere. Magnetic tray. So it can be a bit of a pain in the ass to get the intake out, but it's really mostly just stupid accessories. So I'm familiar with these cars. I'm just going to end up whipping parts off here and there. If you're not familiar, the way you're going to want to do this is to look around your engine bay and say, okay, I'm removing this. What's connected to this? Is it vacuum lines that can be disconnected, or can you remove this with a lot of stuff connected and just flip it out of the way? Because a lot of times, complete removal of an item on a car doesn't make any sense for timing. It's way easier to leave things connected. Say, for example, you need to take this engine out and replace it. If the AC system on the car works, you remove the AC system from the engine. Don't drain it down and disconnect it, because you're just adding complexity and failure points. Anywho, let's start whipping some minor things off of this particular setup and see where we go. So you're going to find a lot of 10 millimeters in here, and that's relatively normal for pretty much anything Japanese, or specifically Toyota, Honda, etc. So there's a couple of bolts that hold this thing on, and this has to come off. Sorry if I'm a mouth breather. I'm a little congested today, and I'm also trying to use really decent quality microphones, and that is going to pick up all of my panting. Sorry, maybe it's a automotive ASMR video. I will say that since all of this has been apart before, I put things like anti-seize on nuts and bolts that, in my experience, have been problematic. And that makes it way, way easier for not necessarily just you in the future if you have to work on a car again, but any technician that's going to work on this car in the future, well, which is probably going to be me because it's my car, but any technician that works on this car in the future is greatly going to appreciate a little prodigious use of anti-seize. For example, the reason I put that axle in actually had very little to do with the axle itself, but I had to. So I replaced a perfectly good axle. However, there's a carrier bearing on that axle, and it was seized in. So needless to say, I had to cut the axle, and it was just, holy crapola, was it a nightmare. All right, so this is free now. and we can see that basically we got one connection over here at our intake butterfly, and then we've got a little Y connection over here, which I guess depending on how you wanted to do it, probably just take it off right here. Maybe not. Let's grab a little pokey bit. Pokey bit, pokey bit, pokey bit. Here we go. So I'm going to come over behind you guys, sneak around. We're just going to push these right off, because all of these have been off in the past. And as long as you're not abusive when you remove them, these hoses will last. They're pretty stiff, pretty formed in place, but you're not totally screwed. One more thing you're going to want to do is remove these two plugs so you can separate this wiring harness from this vacuum valve manifold here. And you probably don't need to pay too much attention to where all of those things go. Here's another one you're going to want to remove. Oh man, I feel really weird doing this entirely in silence. Even though I'm wearing headphones. Actually, you know what? Let's pull this off here so we don't forget where it goes. You just pop this out of that clip. Okay, so now you can get this thing somewhat out of your way. These plugs are good. They're out of your way. Don't feel terrible on older cars that a lot of the clips break. That's unavoidable. These are old cars. Sip of coffee. So Toyota is actually pretty notorious for older plugs breaking, but really plastic just doesn't age well. I'll be honest with you, you can do a lot to make it last longer. Wash your engine once in a while is a great start. Let's remove the throttle cable next. I think that's going to be a couple of 12s maybe. A couple of 12s. Toyota loves to give you two things to do with the same wrench, or three things to do with the same hand. In the factory service manual for the MR2 Turbo, the timing belt tensioning sequence requires you to have three hands, and it actually has a picture of all three hands, which is a fascinating, like, FU from Toyota to the potential mechanic. So we've got a few more vacuum lines here. We're going to want to pull this guy off. Once again, give that a little push. Be gentle when you do this, because if you push too hard, you'll split the hose. And that's not something you want to do. So it just takes a little persuasion, and they usually come right off. Yeah, all right. So we have a few more things. We've got to take the intake duct off, and then over here we've got a breather hose, which I think, you know what? I think I'm going to leave this on, and let's take that off. Why be lazy? I got all the tools right here, or somewhere. Here they are. Now you can use official hose clamp pliers, or you can use an old pair of slip joints. Technique is everything. You just get used to working these things after a while, but slow and steady is always a better option, I promise you of that. Let's grab the 10 mil again, which is a popular thing on this particular job, and rip these off. Oh, squeaky, squeaky. I do strongly recommend, when you're dealing with Toyota clamps of this nature, that you make sure that you keep the little dents created. So these clamps have two wires that go around instead of like a full, what would you say? Instead of a full, like band clamp. And if you do not line these Toyota ones back up in the dents they made, oftentimes they won't seal. And that's a pain in the ass, because when they don't seal, You know, everybody likes a tight seal, especially Alaskans. But, you know, it's, again, there's a lot of situations in the automotive world where just a little bit of experience with a particular brand is nice. And it's funny because, oh, that's not good. All right, so that's right. That's a good example of why you should be careful removing certain things, because I just split that boot a little bit, and I'm not happy about that. You know what? I think we're just going to tighten this clamp back up, and we're going to remove this at a different spot. I don't like how that's going, and I strongly recommend, if you run into a spot where you're potentially going to damage a difficult to replace part and put the vehicle out of service, there better be a good reason for it. And two things: this is my car, not a customer's car, so I don't even need to give the customer an option. But what you typically would say to a customer at this point is, all right, well, we're going to have to approach this slightly differently. We did slightly damage something, but not beyond fixing or beyond using, and it may be nearly impossible to get a replacement. So we can leave it, or we can rip it apart and see how far we have to go. Now, I don't know, is that the right or the wrong way to do it? That's up to you. But oftentimes you don't even call a customer. If it's something as stupid as an intake clamp like that, or an intake boot rather, you can just sort of, yeah, see, that's going to come right out of there. All right, so we're disconnected here, but we have a wiring harness in the back here. And that wiring harness does connect to the engine, so we're going to have to remove that. Oh man, sometimes doing stuff by feel just isn't the best. So let's take this out of the way. You know, sometimes the few minutes it takes to get some plugs undone and to remove something is worth its weight in gold. Huh. This plug isn't letting go very easily. All right, let's grab a pair of pliers. If you take needle nose pliers and you apply them gently in the right direction, you can sometimes really encourage a plug to let go, like that one. See how nice that came off? We didn't break nothing. All right, so we got that disconnected. Gonna pull off our little emissions hose here. I might not even still be on camera. Okay, I'm kind of on the camera. I'm not moving it. But basically, I'm just removing the intake, or the intake tube, so to speak. We're actually going to be removing part of the intake in reality in a minute. Okay, so there we are. Disconnect your throttle cable. Oh, come on. Some of these vacuum lines just, funny enough, they were off not long ago, but they don't want to come off. Okay. So, now we can get a better look at these plugs down here and see where we need to, where's the squeeze? So it looks like this one's a squeeze like this. Got that one. All right, this one's a squeeze like this. Come on. Okay. And we have the source of this harness is coming up to here, going up and around. All right. So we've got two little clippy doos we got to get out, hopefully without hurting them too much, I guess. I find working on cars fun sometimes because they don't design things to easily be disconnected sometimes. Clips that, yeah, 10 years ago would have come out and never had a problem. Now they're like permanently adhered, so to speak. And no matter what delicate fork tool you use, they all do the same thing. All right, so the fun part of doing this job is that there are two coolant lines right here. Let me grab you and bring you in. Actually, can you see that? No, we're going to grab you, bring you right in. So right below the throttle body, there's a coolant line here, and hiding behind it is another coolant line. You don't want to disconnect those. Disconnecting all of this stuff, it allows you to flap this intake up and only be connected here so that it can go where it needs to go. If you leave more stuff connected, when you go to move this, you're going to be fighting 48 different hoses and plugs. Disconnect as much as you feel comfortable, but do not disconnect these coolant lines. It makes a mess, and it's to heat these throttle bodies during cool weather operation. All right, let me set you back up here, and we're going to start taking more stuff apart. All right. So now, we're actually going to be working on this side of the engine, and there's a few things we've got to remove over here. And it's kind of strange, because, like, here, let me show you. So, if you want to see what I find entertaining about Toyota, let's see. All right. So right here is a ground lug for the intake manifold. Now, that's connected to the chassis via this wire right here. This wire also goes down and actually goes into a wiring harness, which means it's ground points for other things. They were nice enough to consider if you're pulling the entire engine out, your chassis connection has a plug. So you can just unplug this, take your whole motor out. The only problem is if you're taking the intake off, you could unplug that, but you're still going to take this nut off to get the harness bolt off. Just a little laugh. It's like the least likely thing that's ever going to have to be done to a Toyota, which is replace the entire engine, was accounted for. But the most likely thing you have to do, which is pull this intake for rear spark plugs and rear valve cover gaskets, is not accounted for. They don't. It's just weird. All right. Let's set you up, see if I can get you a good view of what we're doing here. We're going to clip you to the fuse box, maybe? Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. There you go. Let's grab, I think that's going to be what? Is that a 12 or a 14? It's looking like a 12. All right, let's double check that's a 12, which it is. Toyota is pretty predictable in their bolt sizing. Now ratchet, ratchet, ratchet. There it is. Got my favorite ratchet right here. It's weird. You get attached to tools, and then you never ever vary from that, and you just stick to the same tools over and over and over again. All right. By the way, a lot of people are going to tell you, disconnect your battery before you do this. Why don't you just not start your car? That would be like a great idea. All right. So then, if I remember right, these two bolts are really not enjoyable. So behind the intake manifold, there's actually an engine lifting strap that you probably can't see from your angle. But it's got a bolt right here at the top, which I thought, is it a 14? Might be a 14. But let's get a deep 12 and give that a try. I can't remember. There's something about it when I did it last time was a bit of a pain in the ass. But again, when I say the guy should have done the friggin' back rocker box gasket, or sorry, valve cover gasket, when he had this off already, I ain't kidding. Oh, sounds like my headphones are not happy. I'm gonna guess that was a warning that one of them's gonna die. Yeah, Aaron Beats Studio Buds, 19%. Don't buy these stupid things. These things are absolutely absurd. All right, are we gonna get on this bolt? It might be a 14, or is it a 10? Or did I possibly never tighten it? No, it's probably a 14. Or is it just inaccessible completely? No. No, it looks like you can get on it. We're just not the right size. I got one option with this ratchet, and then we have to move up. Because 1/4-inch drive doesn't go much bigger than that. Let's see. Is that it? So I'll tell you this, it would be sick to have a 14mm, because you know what, let's take a look at that with a mirror. I gotta figure out what's going on back there. Alright, like most dentists, you take a good look. Oh, I think that's a 14, and I do believe it's obstructed. I'm fairly certain that's obstructed. Let's take a look. What do I got here? Nope, 3/16 or 9/16. Oh, good. My 14 is most definitely not where I need it to be. Maybe one of these is a 14. Ooh, found a 3/8 drive, 14. Let's see if at least that fits. Yep. Okay, so it is a 3/8, or it is a 14. Alright, I can't remember what I ended up doing. So let's take a look. I think maybe this line has a bracket that you can take off. Maybe not. Or is that line attached to that bracket? Alright, let's grab a flashlight, do some looking, and I'll bring you back in a bit. Alright, so we left a moment ago trying to figure out how to get a bolt out that holds the intake in back here. Well, it's obscured by this, I believe it's a power steering line. Could be an AC line, who really cares? It's a line that's in the way. Well, I took a mirror and I figured out that right next to that is a nut that holds this line steady. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back here and I'm going to remove this nut by braille because, well, you really can't see it. And then we're going to proceed with removing the intake. Let me set you back up and you can watch me struggle bus this job, because the struggle bus is absolutely real. So I'm thinking we're going to be facing probably, oh wait, I got my sockets over there. So it's probably going to be a 10 that holds this line on, potentially a 12, but we're going to find out right now. Skibbity beeba, shoo-ah. So what size is on here? Looks like a 12. Now we're going to have to find a 10, which, how is that? How's that even possible? Here's a 10. Let's put the 11 away. I can't say I'm used to finding 10 millimeters on command. Alrighty, let's grab our little nutski here. Okay. Now, can I see what I'm doing? Without lying to you, not really, but I guess the only way I can explain this is after doing this for so many years, you just sort of know what to expect. And there's our nut. It's one of those things that's just really strange. Now, this hose doesn't really get out of the way. Like, it bends back here, but it certainly does not avoid conflict, so to speak. Let's try and see if that bolt is a 10 or a 12, or sorry, a 12 or a 14. I thought it was a 12, but it does not seem to be. Okay, so looks like we're gonna have to grab a different ratchet and a 14. And we're gonna try and go shallow because there's not a ton of room back there. Now, I put anti-seize on these bolts because I am thoroughly aware at how much of a nightmare it is to do this. But if you don't, and this is the first time you're taking one of these cars apart, and it's been, you know, let's say 200,000 miles, because a lot of people, maintaining a Toyota is a contentious subject, but let's say it's been 200,000 miles. A lot of this might be a bit of a struggle to get out. I have taken all this apart before, and like, this bolt will not thread out by hand, so we're going to continue ratcheting it, I suppose. And when I'm working on customers' cars, you're going to see a lot more power tools, but on my own stuff, it's kind of like a solace for me to do this shit by hand. This should come right out, and it's not. There's probably a little bit of tension on it. And this line is such a pain in the butt because it's right there, like, and you can't really get any other wrench or ratchet in. We might be able to cheat a flex head ratcheting wrench, which I totally get if you don't have. You're probably not a professional mechanic. I don't see why too many professionals would find this entertaining, mostly because they already know how to do this stuff. This is relatively common. Anybody that's worked on Toyota for a period of time has experienced these issues, so to speak, and they're not issues, they're just design features. Okay, so there's our bolt, which now means that this bracket is free and our intake will come off. You tap her, you got a little flexi in there, it feels like. So now we need an Allen wrench, which again, I have these fancy Allen sockets. Oh man, second try's a charm, right? But you can use a regular Allen wrench. There's not a particular rhyme or reason to use specific tools other than being a professional. Time is money, you know. Flat rate works the way flat rate works. So we're gonna rip these out, and there, you don't need to be monkey tight. Okay, and then we're gonna grab a deep 14. That's not a deep 14. Clean your tools up, because what you end up doing is looking for the same stuff over and over and over again in similar places, which I guess if you're careful enough, most of your tools should be in the same place. Here's a 14. Okay, let's take a little crack it loose here. Okay, And this one too. Okay, that is really the intake manifold in a nutshell. There is one more bracket that we have to take off over behind the throttle body, which I'm probably just going to sneak over there and do right now. Let's take a look. That one may be a 12, but we'll check with a 14. And let's take a quick gander here. Nope, that's not a 14. That's either going to be a 10 or a 12. And if you put your hand on the battery, which is covered in grease, you're going to get grease all over yourself. That should be obvious, I would think, but you never know. All right, let's try a 12, and let's try a 10. Probably going to be a 12. Let's see. Okay, make that loosey. Okay, we're on the fastener, and it's a 12. Okay, get that one loose. I remember taking one of these braces off, but I can't remember which one. So we're not going to take either of them completely off, and we're going to see if we can lift the manifold out. Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. Okay, so 12, we don't need the 10. Sip of coffee. Who would have thought this was going to be an ASMR video? Okay, let's grab our Allen. And just, now that the manifold is not held in by that bracket in the back, these feel a little tighter, even though we just loosened them. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, now we should be able to get this out and reveal the actual problem that we're looking for, which is not the intake manifold, ironically. It's funny, you think about the old 40s and 50s and 60s cars that are massively inefficient. I mean, these cars were 20 feet long, had 500 cubic inch V8s that made 200 horsepower. It's almost comical when you think about it. This little V6 right here makes like 220 horsepower and somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 pounds of torque, which, to be able to do that and get, 23 to, 25 miles to the gallon on the highway if you are careful, that's a pretty good task, to say the least. You really don't find any 60s cars that'll do that. All right, this manifold should be free, and let's lift her up now and get her out of the way, hopefully. All right, we're still attached to something in the back. What are we fighting? Oh yeah, we're fighting the cooling hoses, but that I'm not gonna play around with. Now, how did I do this before? I wouldn't have taken that off. Is it? So, hold on a second here. That's going to the intake. That's not a coolant hose. And that is a coolant hose. Well, where does the coolant come out of? Oh, yeah, like I said it does. It's right there. All right, so I think we can take this hose right here off, which happens to be giving us a little struggle. And this hose needs to stay. This hose is a breather. All right, let's try this again. I mean, it's not going to come off easy, but it should come off. All right. How did I do this? This comes off. I swear to God it does. And I certainly didn't take any, oh, yeah. Just lift the back out, dummy. Just lift the back up, dummy. Okay. Now, the intake manifold is off, and we still got that stupid hose over there. All right, this is like standard procedure. That's actually the PCV valve, believe it or not. Yeah, cars still have PCV valves. Okay, so that's off. Oh, and we got a plug on the back. See, even though I've done this before, sometimes I forget stuff. Oh, it's not a plug, it's just a ground strap. We are gonna need a 10. Oh, don't do that. So I just pulled the cardinal sin, which is I knocked a nut out of my magnetic tray. Probably should make that a little more flat. All right. Back to the almost oops. Let's grab that ground wire and get this damn intake manifold out of the way. It's a good thing this intake manifold is so well grounded. You don't want any intake sparks, you know? That's a real negative thing, because obviously this thing's so high performance, you might end up having a boom boom on your intake. Wow. Okay. That's out. And now our intake manifold's free. How many times can I say that? All right, so you just, I don't know, you find a nice place to put it that it's not in the way. And you reveal what it looks like when this stuff breaks down. People will go, oh, that's mouse damage. No, it's not. Not mouse damage at all. Let's clean off that intake gasket. Actually, let's pull that intake gasket out of there so it doesn't get damaged. And that's going to go right there. You don't need to see it. And we're going to take some rags and stuff them down them intake ports. Because you may never believe this, or at least lay one over the intake ports, hopefully. You probably would never believe that a professional mechanic would have this problem, but not in an intake, directly in a spark plug hole. I launched a bolt from a timing setup on a car, and the hilarious part is I was moonlighting at a friend's shop, which meant I wasn't even on the payroll, and now I was in a situation where helping a friend turned into an absolute nightmare. But I got the bolt out, and I didn't have to take the cylinder head off. It's funny, they always warn you, you know, if you go to automotive college, it's like, oh, you're gonna end up having to do all sorts. Yeah, you gotta disassemble half the motor if you drop a bolt in there. Maybe, but maybe not, is what I like to say. Because the truth of the matter is, a determined dude will find a way. Not necessarily the best possible way, but he'll find a way. Don't worry about these clips. They're all crap, and they don't really do much. You do have to remove this main harness from the valve cover, which makes this back valve... Oh, you're just looking at my shoulder. Let me give you a little bit of an update here, and then we're going to have to change some batteries. So, if you come back here and look, let's use a pointer here. If you come back and look, this harness is going to have to be moved. Now, it's a pretty beefy harness, and it's sort of attached to the valve cover. It's attached to the timing cover over here. It's annoying, but you can get it out of the way. And then you take these 3 bolts out. Ooh, this third one over here, you take your coils out, just like you're going to do a tune-up. And then you remove the valve cover. So let's take a break, and then we'll get back at this. All right, we're back. I am going to set you up somewhere so that you can see what I'm doing, and we're going to remove this back valve cover. I'm not going to put you through the setup process. Let me get you situated, and then we'll do it. All right, let's hope and pray that this comes apart okay, and we can get this banged out relatively quickly, because I got crap to do, and let's be real, I think you guys do too. I think I figured out how to make the single microphone mono. Oh, sorry, you get to hear me struggle while I'm trying to speak. I think I figured out how to make the microphone mono, so it should sound a little bit better, or not. I think it just makes it so I don't have to make it mono in the video editing software. All right, so we've got our coils unplugged. We can buzz these coils out. Now you can leave your spark plugs in because you're not going that far, but you know, when I did these spark plugs, would have been a fantastic time, and I mean fantastic time, to do this valve cover, you know, if you're ever curious. Definitely is nice. Don't worry, the valve cover sits on top of the end cam bearing, so to speak. Therefore, you don't have to, you know, take all the timing crap apart like you do on some cars, but who knows. Now, these 3 bolts here for the harness, they look a little crusty, so let's grab some Looby Dooby and give those a little taste. Man, oh, okay. I got a ZEP 45 here. We're going to ZEP 45 it. This stuff makes a mess, but it's good. All right. Looby Dooby activated. Now, no. I am not going to let those sit long enough for that penetrating oil to penetrate. But what it's going to do is, as they come up, just going to make that rust a little softer. If there's any powdery metal, instead of that metal binding up, it's going to just form like a bit of a paste with the Looby Dooby and come right off. You know, it's everything gets Looby Dooby. You can ask that that guy Yogurt, I think is his name. Not entirely sure. All right, well, you got to release this harness, and you're potentially going to break some of these, and I mean that, like potentially break some of these clips. Not every car is going to be in decent enough condition that this easily comes off, but it's always worth a shot. All right, so yeah, this is like epic pain in the ass level. So you're going to want to probably pull your injectors to give you a little bit more play. Not your injectors, so to speak, but the actual plugs on your injectors. Now let me give you a little warning here. I feel like this is probably important to say. If everything you're touching is breaking, there's potential that you may not want to take quite so much stuff apart. And I mean that when I say that. Like, it's sort of an opinion call. You have to know when to say uncle, so to speak. Because if you don't, you may end up creating like a, well, I'll stop breaking stuff eventually situation. And that's never fun. All right. Boy, is this harness ever in the way. Now, I'm behind you, so don't do anything sneaky. See my flashlight? I'm just over here. Oh, gave you a little bump there. Hope you're all right. Just taking a look. There's a clip here that seems to be attaching the harness to the engine. And I would like to liberate the harness from that clip.
or just the clip from the engine. So we're going to take a quick look here, and I think it might just be a 10mm bolt. Let's grab the mirror. A lot of working on cars is memory. A lot of it is just figuring crap out. Okay, where's my plastic bracket? Is there a bolt? Yep. All right, so I keep giving you a bump, and I apologize. But we just got a 10mm bolt to remove under there where the harness attaches. Over here to give us a little bit more play. So, oh yeah, I haven't choose the wrong tool for the job. Yeah, well, sorry, bumped you again. All right, once I get this nut off, good chance I'll drop this one just because it's in such a terrible place. Man, can't even, oh, I think those, will that, nope. We want automotive Blinko though, because it hit the ground. So, as a big fan, if the price is right, nothing is better than winning automotive Blinko. And I don't know if you've worked on many cars, but the general rule of automotive Blinko is if you're lucky enough to hear it hit the ground, you've won automotive Blinko. All right, I don't even know what I'm unplugging at this point, but it's restricting a little bit of harness movement. So, all right, and then we've got what looks like is just a, oh no, that's actually a harness. I was gonna say it looks like nothing, but I mean, it looks like we're nearly ready to liberate this thing. There's just one more, one plug right there, and it's gonna have to be popped off of that bracket with my favorite pointer / fork tool. Actually, you know what? Let's go for a longer fork on this one. Where is my longer fork? Have you seen it? That would be super helpful. Are you sure? Oh. You know, sometimes things are actually in the toolbox. All right, let's get long fork in here and see if we can't fork this. Oh, yeah. Just break it right off. That's always another option. Again, as I said, if it seems like a plug's not going to come apart or whatever, proceed at your own risk, because anything you break, I'm not paying a fix at the very least. I'll tell you that. All right, what can you see over there? Okay, so it is that kind of plug. So you got to squeeze this side and pull the bottom out. You know, some of these are so hard to squeeze, and I'm trying not to like grunt like a Cro-Magnon man into the microphone, which is, I mean, it's a good possibility. Let me grab a pair of pliers. You know, let's go needle nose. I'll tell you, it's freaky to basically be narrating your own life with no other example. Like, I'm a musician, so I'm pretty okay being in the public eye and being in front of people, but it's strange when the shop is silent, because I'm almost always listening to music naturally. But it's fun. I'm getting used to it. Here we go. Okay. So, are we liberated? Yeah, we're liberated. Yeah, just rip the harness right off. Okay. So now we have enough room to work. I mean, listen, it's not a ton of room, and we could definitely use more, but this is gonna work. So take your, you know, completely loose valve cover bolts out, you could probably just tighten this stupid thing. I'm not even gonna lie. Okay, so there's one that's, I mean, it kind of required some torque. I'll tell you this. To the layman, these were so loose that you could probably say, let me make sure you guys can see, but those were so loose that, yeah, I guess you could see. Kind of a strange perspective. All right. Yeah? No? I guess it's the best we can do. But anyway, these were so loose that you could say, what, did somebody loosen those at a shop? And it wouldn't seem, you know, like out of reality. But that's just the truth. What ends up happening is these silicone gaskets squish over time. They become less springy and resilient and much more, I guess you would call them rubber-like, because silicone has this strange kind of bounciness. And what ends up happening is over time they get a little harder, and every time they get a little harder they shrink a tiny bit. And so in reality the valve cover is not even tight, and that's why they leak. I don't know how to say this. I guess in theory, if you were to catch them, like right at that critical moment in time when they were just getting loose, and tighten them, and then, you know, 2 years later you gave them another 1/8 of a turn or whatever they needed to be at spec, gasket would probably actually seal. I don't think the gaskets are physically unable to seal at this point. If you took everything apart, cleaned it up, stuffed the gaskets back in, put RTV in the corners and everywhere like you're supposed to, I think they probably would seal. But that's not a guarantee. And if you're going this far, it's, I don't know, probably $35 in gaskets. I can't even remember. So just do it, you cheap prick. I certainly in my shop would no. Oh yeah, that's probably why that's leaking. You know, bud, I really wish I could tell you that there's no way this was my fault. But who knows? Maybe I loosened them on myself. Maybe I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do these. Didn't end up doing it. Doubtful. But excuse me, I've been known to do way dumber things. Let's get this on here. These are like just in the perfect place to not be able to get them out. All right. So that one is out. Oh, that's not Automotive Plinko Champion. That's Automotive Plinko Son of a Dinko. All right, this metal one, yep, that one's coming out too. So we're gonna have to put the car up in the air and attempt to find what where all that freaking bolt just went, because it's somewhere in the car. Using universal joints at an angle by hand, kind of a pain, but it is what it is. Now, while we're doing this, I want to make something clear. Any suggestions you guys have for what you want to see in videos, or you know what? Let me back that up. I make the videos of the subject matter that I want and that I have available. But if there's stylistic things or format things that you guys would prefer, you guys, I mean like the 3 of you that watch, but if there is anything, ooh, we found a tight one. If there's anything that I can do, I'll do it. I understand about microphones and a lot of that stuff, so I tried to go for the good audio in the beginning. I don't know what kind of audio you guys really like. Ooh, let's get that on there. Come on. Why are you not wanting to come out? Let's get a taller socket. All right. Oh, there's the detail. Something's not feeling quite copacetic on this one. Let's see if we can get our correct aim on this bad boy here and figure out why it doesn't want to come loose. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, I think that's gonna break. Ooh, I don't know. Oh. Now, when you're dealing with something that feels like this feels, and I can't really, I can't tell you, oh, it feels like X or it feels like Y. But when you run into a situation and it feels as though you're about to snap a bolt, take a second, step back, and reassess your situation, because if you snap a bolt off in the wrong place, you're gonna have a freaking nightmare getting it back out, or, you know, dealing with the situation. So what I like to do is you sort of work the threads. And that requires you rolling it out and rolling it back in, because for whatever reason, this bolt and its threads are sort of getting together. And that's not what you want. This ain't a high school dance. You want these threads and this bolt to be separate entities now and forever, should they need to part. And you got to be careful, because somebody may have done this and cross-threaded this bolt. But I'm going to tell you a little secret. If you work these threads enough, even if they're in aluminum, it'll come out. And you'll be able to put it back in. All right, this is... All right, I'm really curious. This may be also a case of a stuck gasket. When the washer that you're supposed to use to seal these things down to the valve cover gets really crushed. I don't know, we're gonna find out. But this should not be coming out that hard, I'll say that much. And this is, talk about the one you don't want to get stuck. All right, I think we're home free. Hey, you like the disco lights? That's what happens when your battery's about to die. So, all right, I got this bolt out. I'm really nervous to look at what the threads look like. So instead, I'll throw it down. We'll play some more automotive Plinko. Good, good. It's precisely what we wanted to do. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of how many things can you make a pain in the ass. All right, I think we got one more. Might have to come over there on your side and look. Hey, look at that. We got another one that's not coming out real easy. Oh, she loosened up, though. Normally, I'd come over and, you know, be where you're at, but, you know, you're here. And Oh, come on. Could you just last like another fucking minute here, please? Fuck it. We're gonna move. I'm gonna go for the old reach under. Sorry about the bumps. Hey, there's one more bolt too. Light's gonna die any minute now. Guaranteed. Let's go get another battery. Light's gonna die anyway. Might as well have a battery. Again, it's really strange just walking around my garage talking to myself, giving you like a play-by-play. Mostly has to do with the fact that I won't move the camera. So I feel like I might as well talk to you. Keep you on board. All right. Let's finish getting this damn bolt out. Sorry about the bump. I mean, you probably can't even see what I'm doing. I think I'm suboptimal. I'm actually, yeah, you can see the ratchet flapping right at the bottom of your screen. But I do appreciate you guys. Oh, well, dropped the ratchet now. But got that bolt out without stuffing her. So we're only looking for 2 bolts and a ratchet. Luckily, we have an alternative for the last bolt. And we're going to use Tiny. Tiny is a little 1/4-inch ratchet I have had for, I don't know, going on like 100 years. Is that possible when you're only 37? I couldn't tell you. Ooh, I bet you if I unplug whatever this thing is. Now, remember, the best option ever is to basically make everything in your own way. Because I don't need to unplug anything else. That's just dumb. But I do need to get this out of the way. When you make things in your own way, you can get them out of your own way. All right. Sorry about the bump. But, all right. Last valve cover bolt is coming out now. Look at that beautiful K&N air filter. You should feel the raw horsepower that this thing has. And I mean raw. Very, very raw. All right. Let's take old Leaky McLeakerson off here. Oh yeah, it doesn't seem like it's trying too hard. Yep. Okay. Okay. What are we working with here? Yep. The other side's gonna have to come off at some point. Let's give it a little encouragement from my favorite fork tool. Here we go. Valve cover uncovered. Okay. It's really not nearly as bad to get out as I thought it would be. Look at those camshafts. Pretty fancy. Interesting that they have to put the hydraulic. Well, here, let me show this to you. A lot of people get curious as to why cars come with timing chains now rather than timing belts. And timing chains were like a thing of the past, and now timing chains are on everything. Well, when Honda came up with VTEC, what it meant, I'll tilt you down. All right, now I'm going to go on the other side, and I'm going to do some pointing. So, basically, pay attention now. You know what? We're not going to use the long screwdriver. What you see here is a cam phaser. That is a hydraulically actuated tool. tool that the engine uses to change the physical timing of the camshaft. The secret is that you're still running on the same camshaft lobes. There's no difference. You get this set timing and duration of your lobe. You can just phase that entire set. Honda's VTEC or Toyota's VVT-Li actually has the bearings in between, and there's a third lobe in the middle with a third rocker arm that hydraulically connects to everything on the Honda VTEC. The VVT-Li is slightly different, but it's what they do is they have extra cam lobes that are actually a longer duration, higher lift, and then it can also phase. But what they did was this has to be an oil, and this really is kind of a complicated setup to put back here, expensive gears, all that shit. So what they started doing was they just put timing chains on them, put this on each gear in the timing chest over this end of the motor, and bada bing, the oily stuff stays oiled. You also don't have to replace timing belts. Timing belts are actually more efficient. They use less energy to do the job, but the service life is a bit annoying. So, yeah, you know, alas, that's what you get. This thing looks pretty good inside. Holy crap, I just picked a piece of RTV off. Hard as a rock. That's obviously why this thing was leaking. We're a little sludgy back here. Oop, a little sludgy. That ain't good. That's an oil return hole that's very sludgy. I'm probably going to try and clean that out a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a lot, because I just plugged it up with sludge. So let's take my pick and see if we can pick that sludge out. That could also be why she's leaking. I was a little surprised to see that sludge. Oh yeah, we got quite a bit of sludge back there. Yep. Yeah, we got a lot of sludge. So that actually could be a big cause of this, is that the rear head drain was sludgy. And we're going to try and get as much of this out as possible. You probably can't see whatever the hell I'm doing, but it's actually kind of nasty. That is definitely a head drain too. So that should be something you're going to want to pay attention to, which is what's going on inside your head drains. I'm going to grab a flashlight and a mirror. That's not something I've seen before, folks. Every day working on cars, you have the chance of seeing something you've never witnessed before, and this is definitely something I've never seen. Oh man, that whole thing is just full of sludge. All right, looks like we're gonna need to keep picking at that. Wow, that's like traumatic. I can't even believe all that sludge. That's like coronary artery disease. Turn to the light. Who turned that light? All right. Wow. I really can't say that makes me terribly happy. See what else I got for tools that might go in there better. We need reverse scrapage stock. What do we got for reverse scrapage? Probably nothing. Well, we're going to keep going with what we're using, because a big thing we don't want to do is stuff that back in the motor. That would be abominable. So we're just going to keep picking away, so to speak, and get as much of that out as we can. That's just fucking nasty. All right, let's take another look here. All right, Aaron, what'd you do with the mirror? Oh, right where you needed it. Okay, that looks a little cleaner, but what I'm trying to understand is where the oil's supposed to go. Really curious. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Oh, is that where it goes? Is there a hole in there? Let's find out. That's it. I'm sticking a Q-tip in there. All right. I don't think you guys need to hear all of this. All right. Now, I'm going to just throw this thing back together real quick. But I wanted to show you, sorry about the bump. If you look right here and right there and right over there, you see some stripes. That's RTV. You put that in places where machine surfaces are meeting so that like this part bolts on to this part back here, the cylinder head. This is kind of a timing cover, so to speak, on the opposite end. Well, those surfaces can tend to leak. So just put a little. Don't put a lot. Don't put a lot. Nope, nope. Less. A little less. A little less. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to slap this thing back together, and we'll talk about it in a minute. We got some other things. We actually got to check one of the tires to see if it's why it's going flat. So we'll get back with you in a minute. But installation is the reverse of removal. We'll see you in a minute.